I want to bring in CBSN political contributor and Republican strategist Leslie Sanchez for our inaugural Strat Chat. Hey, we can run here, Leslie.
We planned that. So.
All right, let's start off by playing some of what White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer had to say about this race. Let's take a listen.
We did pretty well in November, and we've continued to pick up seats around the country at different levels, so I feel very confident about the state of the party. I think this was a big loss for them. The bottom line is they went all in on it. They said that their goal was to get over 50%. They came up short.
All right, so Spicer called it a big loss for Democrats. Do you think that the White House should be giving that much weight to this race?
It reminds me of saying that there was a larger crowd at the inauguration. You know, it's a lot of perspective, I would say that. And as a Republican, of course, it is a defeat, and we'll count that. And the Democrats are certainly desperate to get a win on the board coming out of, and especially right at this marker of 100 days. But realistically, I think what we really have to pay attention to is special elections can be tough, but runoffs from special elections, having worked for a member who had to face that, is extraordinarily difficult, because then it really gets to just the loyalist of the loyal, kind of grassroots, grass tops voters. They're the ones that are really going to champion this cause. So while it may be a national referendum in the Democratic eyes, and the Republicans understand this is again about ground game. Now you've got a consolidated Republican to get behind. It's going to move a lot clearer and a lot better for Republicans ahead.
So there were indications Karen Handel was going to try and maintain a little bit of distance. Now it looks like maybe she's not going to be maintaining as much distance from President Trump. But what would be the strategy there? She hasn't exactly been a down-the-line Trump supporter.
Sure, and I think independence for any of these members is certainly going to be a positive. But again, if this is going to come down to runoffs for special election, it is your precinct chairman, it's your state party head, it's the folks that are going to raise money for you that way. It's going to be on an off day when a lot of people aren't focused on it. So nationally, from a social media perspective, it's certainly catnip, but otherwise it's not.
All right. Well, we've also learned that Utah Congressman Jason Chaffetz is not going to be seeking re-election in 2018. I know you have been talking to your Republican sources. What have you learned?
Basically, I heard that the quote was that it's just not fun anymore. And I think for any Republican in the establishment, certainly in leadership, this is not a delicate or a fun dance to try to navigate the new Trump Washington. And certainly he's somebody who has eyes and is a contender for national office, meaning the governor's race. You're hearing Josh Romney and some other big names that are going to be out there. Lieutenant Governor have big name ID. I think you're hearing internally he wants to focus there and let the inside Washington Beltway politics and the new Trump administration handle it out.
It seemed kind of sudden.
Sure, but he's also somebody who, once he makes up his mind, he goes in that direction.
All right. Well, President Trump is coming off a few big foreign policy weeks. Some people will call that a win, but they were tinged by reports of White House infighting, influencing his decisions. How can this type of situation impact an administration, and what can President Trump and his staff do to repair this dynamic in the White House?
Well, first off, I think the administration certainly did not have a traditional honeymoon. Everybody's been really, surrounding the gates of the 1600 Pennsylvania for good reason and for a long time from day one, even before the inauguration. There's going to be a lot of this in any new administration. We have to be fair on that point. It's fundamentally he has to get his cabinet in. He has to start exercising true executive authority and branching that out to individuals that he's entrusted, to be part of his leadership team, and cannot run it solo and kind of white knuckle some of those really strategic diplomatic challenges. And I think that is going to give a lot more peace of mind to both Republicans and Democrats.
So as we approach the president's 100 days, it's obviously an arbitrary kind of milestone.
It's important, Elaine.
Well, I mean, it's a measuring stick for some people, a real chance to evaluate what accomplishments have happened so far. So what would be your evaluation of this young president?
Sure. Republicans, especially base establishment Republicans, are going to say they're still sweating a little bit through the details, but the Senate confirmation of the Supreme Court justice, that's number one. That was always the rallying cry among base establishment Republicans to get on board, get behind the Republican nominee, and that was the only one. So he delivered on that promise. There's been a lot of missteps, miscalculations, but people will say overall on some the Republicans give him high marks on immigration. They like where he's doing on deregulation, looking at energy policy. So there's some positives coming out of this, and it's going to be too soon to tell. They're going to see how this week goes in terms of health care reform and if there can be some positives on that.
So how would, if you were advising this White House, how would you recommend that they sort of spin this first 100 days?
Sure, that the Trump administration, like I said, never really had the honeymoon. It started really in terms of the criticism right at inauguration. It was so unconventional. It was such a surprise. And Republicans were giving the benefit of the doubt, but there's been such, a swing in terms of how the president is learning and managing that learning curve. It happens with all first-term presidents. You saw it with Bill Clinton. It's not until they build a very strong executive management team in the White House that they get it going. You hear about infighting. That's certainly been a distraction at the White House. They have to settle that down to really look ahead and getting more base support.
All right, Leslie Sanchez, so great to have you
Yeah,
here.
thank you.
Thank you.